are 75 fighter jets sitting on a ship right now, each one worth over $100 million. They are not on land. They are not at an airbase. They are packed onto a floating city somewhere in the open ocean, ready to launch in under 2 seconds. The U.S. Navy has built a system so precise and so disciplined that military experts call it one of the greatest engineering achievements in American history. Tonight we are breaking down exactly how the U.S. stores its multi-billion-dollar fighter jets on its massive carriers, and what you are about to hear will completely change how. You see, American military power. Introduction. The U.S. Navy operates 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. Each one is a floating air base. Each one can travel to any point on Earth without stopping for fuel. And sitting on top of every one of these ships is a collection of the most powerful, most expensive fighter jets ever built by human hands. The question nobody really stops to ask is, how do they fit? How does the military store, protect, move, and launch dozens of aircraft from a ship cutting through rough, open water? The answer involves engineering tricks that have been refined over decades, human choreography that has to be seen to be believed, and real combat lessons paid for in blood and lost aircraft, including just last year in the Red Sea. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think about the men and women who run these ships. Your support keeps this channel going. The size of the problem. First, let us get a clear sense of how big this challenge really is. A Gerald R. Ford-class supercarrier is 337 meters long. That is roughly the length of 3 football fields placed end to end. The flight deck covers about 4.5 acres of open space. That sounds enormous. And it is. But then think about what has to fit on it. A single FA-18 Super Hornet, the backbone of the Navy's strike power, is 18 meters long with a wingspan of nearly 13 meters. Even when you fold its wings, it still takes up the floor space of a small apartment. Now multiply that by 75 aircraft. Add helicopters, electronic warfare jets, early warning planes, and the unmanned drones that are just now entering the fleet. Add weapons, fuel lines, launch equipment, and the maintenance crews who keep everything running. That is when you realize the space problem on a carrier is one of the most serious logistical challenges in the entire United States military. So how does the Navy solve it? With a system that splits the aircraft across 2 levels, the flight deck up top and the hangar deck below. And those 2 levels have to work together like clockwork every single hour of every single day. The 2-deck system. Here is how the system works. The flight deck is the top surface of the carrier, the runway you see in all the footage. During active flight operations, around 20 aircraft are up here at any given moment. Some are parked at the bow near the front of the ship, some are staged at the catapults, waiting to launch. Others are sitting near the back, cooling down after a completed mission. But the flight deck is not where most jets live. That is the hangar deck. The hangar deck sits directly below the flight deck. It stretches for roughly 2/3 of the ship's total length. The ceiling height inside is about 25 feet, tall enough to handle full-size aircraft with crew members working around them on elevated platforms. This is where the real work of the carrier happens. Aircraft not currently flying are sent down here. Maintenance crews work around the clock on engines, electronics, and weapons systems. The hangar deck is divided into 3 separate bays, each sealed from the others by thick steel doors. Those doors were a design decision that came out of hard lessons from World War II when kamikaze attacks turned open hangar decks into infernos. The idea is simple: contain any fire or explosion to one bay so it cannot spread and destroy the whole ship. During normal operations, roughly half the carrier's aircraft are in the hangar at any one time. The other half are either staged on the flight deck or airborne. That split changes constantly depending on the mission tempo, and managing it is one of the most demanding jobs on the ship. The elevators. Now, moving jets between the hangar and the flight deck, that is where things get impressive. A Nimitz-class carrier has 4 massive aircraft elevators. These are not small lifts. Each one is large enough to hold multiple aircraft at once, and they work like enormous platforms rising and lowering between the two decks. Elevator number 1 sits on the starboard side of Hangar Bay 1. Elevator number 2 sits on the starboard side of Hangar Bay 2. Elevators 3 and 4 serve Hangar Bay 3 on both the port and starboard sides. The Ford-class carriers went even further, adding 11 advanced weapons elevators specifically designed to move bombs and missiles from the magazines deep inside the ship up to the flight deck faster and with fewer crew members required. That was one of the most significant upgrades in the Ford design. Getting weapons to the jets faster means more sorties per day, which means more combat power delivered to the enemy. Here is something worth noting, though. When those weapons elevators had reliability problems in the early years of the USS Gerald R. Ford's service, it became a national story. Congressional hearings were held. The Navy spent years fixing the issues. That tells you everything about how critical these systems are to the whole operation. And here is what comes next. The piece of engineering that most people never think about, but without it, none of this would work. The folding wings. The answer to the carrier's space problem starts with one of the smartest design decisions in naval aviation history: folding wings. Every carrier-based aircraft in the U.S. Navy is built with wings that fold. On the FA-18 Super Hornet, the wingtips fold upward. On the F-35C, the outer sections of the wings fold flat. On helicopters like the MH-60 Seahawk, even the tail and rotor blades collapse for storage. When those wings fold, the aircraft's total footprint shrinks by up to half. That means you can fit roughly twice as many aircraft in the same amount of deck space. This is not a simple feature to add. Folding wings add weight to the aircraft. They add mechanical complexity. They require more maintenance. They add additional points where wear and failure can occur. The Navy accepts all of that, because space on a carrier is worth more than the cost of the added complexity. The F-35C was actually designed with exceptionally wide wings to generate the lift needed for carrier landings. But those same wide wings fold into a very tight package when the jet is parked. That was a deliberate engineering decision from the very beginning of the F-35C's design process, because the Navy knew exactly how much space it had to work with. The choreography on deck. Now here is the part that is truly hard to believe until you have seen it in person. Pilots do not park their own jets. Moving aircraft around the carrier deck is done by small, low-profile vehicles called tow tractors, or tugs. The crew members who drive them are trained to move multi-million-dollar aircraft in extremely tight quarters, sometimes with less than a foot of clearance on each side, on a moving ship in the middle of the night. Every jet's position on the flight deck is mapped out by something called the spotting plan. This plan assigns a specific location to every single aircraft at every stage of operations, before launch, after recovery, during refueling, and during weapons loading. The spotting plan is updated constantly throughout the day as aircraft launch, land, and move to maintenance. The flight deck crew is organized by color-coded jerseys, and each color represents a specific job. Yellow jerseys handle aircraft movement and positioning. Green jerseys work the catapults and arresting wires. Purple jerseys handle jet fuel. They are nicknamed grapes by the crew. Red jerseys handle all ordnance and weapons. Each team knows exactly what to do and where to be at every moment of flight operations. Every single shift on the flight deck begins with something called a FOD walk. FOD stands for Foreign Object Debris. The entire deck crew lines up shoulder to shoulder and walks the full length of the flight deck, looking for anything that does not belong: a lost bolt, a piece of safety wire, a forgotten tool. If a small object gets sucked into a jet engine at full power, it can destroy a $100 million aircraft in seconds. So nothing is left to chance. And here is something that completely reframes everything you just heard. The Navy does not just store these jets in calm conditions. It stores, launches, recovers, refuels, and rearmed them while simultaneously defending the ship from incoming missiles, maintaining combat air patrols overhead and moving at 30 knots through open ocean. In 2025, during Operation Rough Rider, U.S. carriers launched more than 1,000 strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen, delivering over 1,100,000 pounds of ordnance, all of it launched and recovered from carrier decks, with jets landing, rearming, and going back out within hours. That is not just a storage operation. That is a combat logistics achievement that no other nation on Earth can match. Protecting jets from the sea itself. Here is something that does not get nearly enough attention: the physical threat the ocean itself poses to a parked aircraft. Salt water corrodes metal fast. Humidity destroys electronics over time. Wind on the flight deck during a storm can reach speeds powerful enough to push a jet sideways, and when the ocean gets rough, the ship pitches, rolls, and heaves in multiple directions at once. Every aircraft parked on the open flight deck is tied down with heavy steel chains attached through fittings called tie-down points. Each jet has multiple tie-down points built into its airframe. In rough weather, extra chains are added. Wheel chocks are wedged tight under the tires. Wings are folded to cut wind resistance. Inside the hangar deck, the situation is more controlled. Aircraft are sheltered from wind, rain, and salt spray. Temperature inside the hangar stays more stable than outside. Maintenance crews can work even in bad weather conditions. Fuel and weapons get the most careful treatment of all. Jet fuel is stored deep inside the ship in heavily armored tanks. It is pumped up to the flight deck only when it is needed, through pressurized lines that are monitored around the clock. Weapons, bombs, missiles are stored in armored magazines far below the waterline and brought up only when a specific mission requires them. The reason for all of this is fire. A carrier fire is one of the most catastrophic events in naval history. The USS Forrestal Fire in 1967 killed 134 American sailors and destroyed 21 aircraft. Every single storage procedure on a modern carrier traces its roots back to lessons learned from disasters like that one. Ford-class upgrades. The Gerald R. Ford-class carriers take everything just described and push it further. The biggest change is the EMALS system, the Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System. Nimitz-class ships use steam-powered catapults to throw jets off the deck. Steam works, but it is rough. Every steam launch puts tremendous stress on the aircraft's airframe. Over hundreds and hundreds of launches, that stress shortens the jet's service life significantly. EMALS uses electromagnetic power to accelerate the aircraft. The launch is controlled by software, meaning the system adjusts its power output precisely for each aircraft based on weight and configuration. A lightweight drone and a fully loaded strike fighter can both launch from the same catapult cleanly, something the old steam systems could not do reliably. Ford-class carriers can generate up to 25% more sorties per day than a Nimitz-class ship. In a full surge, they can put 270 aircraft launches in a single day. That is not just impressive, it is a completely different level of combat capability. The Advanced Arresting Gear, the AAG, handles landings. Where Nimitz ships use hydraulic brakes on the arresting wires, the Ford uses digital electromagnetic braking that adjusts in real time to the weight and speed of each arriving. Aircraft. Less stress on the jet, fewer wire brakes, safer recoveries. Faster launches and safer landings directly translate into better use of the limited deck space, which brings everything full circle back to storage. Real combat losses. All of this technology and discipline does not make the operation perfect. And to understand how these systems truly work, you have to look at what happens when they do not. In 2024 and 2025, the USS Harry S. Truman lost 3 FA-18 Super Hornets while operating in the Red Sea. The first was shot down in December 2024 by the carrier's own strike group. A guided missile cruiser misidentified the jet as an incoming Houthi missile during a live attack and fired on it. Both pilots ejected safely and were recovered. The second aircraft fell off the flight deck while being towed to the hangar. The ship was maneuvering sharply to avoid an incoming Houthi weapon when the jet rolled off the edge into the ocean. The third crashed into the sea after the arresting wire system failed to stop it cleanly on landing. 3 aircraft in less than 6 months. In active combat. Each one worth tens of millions of dollars. Each loss triggering immediate procedure reviews, equipment inspections, and lessons passed to every other carrier in the fleet. That is how the U.S. military operates. Every loss becomes a lesson. Every lesson makes the system stronger for the next crew that inherits it. Conclusion: 75 aircraft, 2 decks, 4 elevators, hundreds of crew members working in perfect coordination, day and night, in calm water and combat zones. The men and women who run those carrier decks are among the most skilled, most disciplined service members this country has ever produced. And the system they operate, tested in real war, built on real sacrifice, is proof that American carrier power remains without equal anywhere on Earth. If this video gave you a new appreciation for what these sailors do every single day, hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed so you never miss what comes next.